Krásné, dobré ráno, dámy a pánové, krásné, dobré ráno všem paninkám a fanouškům motorsportu, kteří nám opět dorazili se na městský Autodrom, aby společně s námi strávili druhý den Racing Journal Speedfest 2026. Budeme začínat závodní program pěkně z hospoda, protože rovnou nás bude startují právě tady na úrovni mistrovství zóny střední pro FIA Formule 4. Moje jméno je Elia Weiss, hodně velice těší, že vás tady budu moci svým hlasem provázet po celý den. Ten program, který nás čeká, je opět velice bohatý. Začínáme už teď závody Formule 4. Jak sami vidíte a slyšíte, tak trošku už nám vyrazili do toho sighting lapu, to znamená za mnou chvíli budeme na startovní trošku. A možná budu čekat další animovatelé programu, protože
Thank you very much, as always. čtvrtý závod Formule 4 v střední Evropy a druhý závod Winterpopu, který nám tady doručí od 15:50, to znamená takový je ten dnešní plán a mezi tím se nám krásně nachystal startovní rož toho postu Formule 4. Jak jsem říkal, 26 postů do třetího závodu připraveno. Karhan už opět na pole position se svým číslem 144. Já jsem tady včera zmiňoval, že kromě té 144 na jeho voze poznáte, že z toho závodníka velice dobře také podle jeho, řekněme, arka silny, protože jeho je velice bezprostředná, je to asi taková jednotka, až mnoha značek
A warm welcome to everyone joining us from all over the world. We're finally at Autodrom Most on Sunday, and it's finally sunny here in the Czech Republic. It is round number 4 of the FIA Formula 4 Central European Zone Championship. We are here on the starting grid for race number 3, Groups A and C, finally coming on track together to fight for the race win. And what an incredible front row that we have this time around. It's the 2 drivers that have won the first 2 races of this weekend. On pole position, Karhan for Jenzer Motorsport. In second position, Elia Weiss, another driver from the Swiss outfit. Jenzer, of course, being very competitive this weekend. Just as always, Karhan won a very wet race number 1 earlier yesterday morning, whereas an incredible job by Elia Weiss in a much more complicated second race of this weekend under sunny conditions, but with a sprinkle of rain at first. Finally, though, the rain is behind us. It's sunny here in Most. The temperatures aren't quite high. It's 25 degrees for the track, only 19 degrees for the air, however, so it's still quite chilly this morning here in Most, but of course we will be heating it up here on track for round number 4 of the Formula 4 Central European Zone Championship here in Most. Will it be one of the top 2 drivers who wins this third race, or maybe will it be the championship leader David Walther? Coming into this weekend, he was at the top of the standings. He starts from 3rd position alongside Simon Rechenmacher, and the 2 of them will try to come back on the top step of the podium. We're ready for race number 3. There's only about 7 minutes before the start of the formation lap. See you guys later in the booth. Thank you so much.
Patří tak tedy už nyní do té struktury z walkingu a na svém postu z toho důvodu má stejné barvy, jaké se v Formuli 1 známe z vozů Landa, Norrise či Oscara Piastriho. To znamená, ta bavá oranž je tady naprosto nepřehlednutelná a věřím tomu, že i vy, vážení diváci na tribunách a na diváckých svazích, mladou česko-finskou závodnici bez potíží a rozklíčujete. Jana Červá se dostala do top 5 celkově, což byl doposud její lepší kariérní výsledek v rámci formulových závodů obecně, protože Elia Weiss jede svoji první sezonu v monomostech. To je také pravda. Loni ještě nebyla dost stará na to, aby závodila ve formulích, to znamená poprvé přešla z motokár do těch takzvaných single seaters a svoji kariéru rozvíjí právě skrz zónu střední Evropy FIA Formula 4. A je to logické, že v Česku pochopitelně má velký vztah polovina rodičů, pochopitelně z České republiky. Mika Häkkinen, její otec je z Finska, maminka z Česka, no a sama Häkkinen i v Česku závodila na motokárách velice dlouho, takže skutečně do jisté míry se rozhodně cítí jako Češka a Česky také velice obstojně umí, takže to je také fakt, který se týká Elie Häkkinen, takže budeme sledovat její kariéru, která zatím kráčí ve stopách jejího slavného otce. Samozřejmě nepřipomenu, že Mika Häkkinen své 2 tituly mistra světa Formule 1 získal právě s McLarenem, to znamená tohleto spojení dává absolutní smysl i právě v případě jeho dcery. Za Eliou Häkkinen potom dále na místě 7 Matilda Pás, německá závodnice, která bude její velkou soupeřkou právě Vivian Trophy v té samostatné klasifikaci, kde vyhlašťujeme nejlepší dívky po závodě, a Matilda Pás rozhodně se nestrácí, právě naopak ona má výbornou rychlost a pokud to jméno je vám provědomé z televizních přenosů, tak se rozhodně nepletete, protože Matilda Pás už letos závodí na úrovni F1 Academy, tím pádem bývá často součástí závodních víkendů Formule 1.
I'm back in the commentary booth for race number 3 of the Formula 4 Central European Zone Championship here in Most. We've seen the starting grid, of course, with our beloved cameras, and we are ready to see who will be the winner for this third race. We've had some topsy-turvy races so far this weekend. They are here in the meantime with Matilda Pás starting from 7th position in this third race. She was very competitive in race number 1. It was also her birthday yesterday. We wished her happy birthday in the paddock yesterday. It was very nice to see her ready to race on her birthday weekend. Who knows whether she will be able to gift herself perhaps a first podium of the season after doing so last year as well. On a track where, of course, overtaking is primarily difficult, especially in the middle sector. We will see many moves being made perhaps towards the opening corner of this racetrack, but of course we will be talking about that during the formation lap as well. Here instead with Leo Nilsson starting from 9th position, the Swedish driver getting ready for yet another race with his team. Of course, he is one of the most prominent talents from Swedish motorsport. He has struggled quite a bit in this weekend, but has instead taken his best result in race number 1 with 8th place. That was the first time he cracked the top 10 this season. But a final look at Max Karhan with 3 minutes left on the clock before we start the formation lap. Karhan will start from pole position after having done so in race number 1 as well. He was the quickest driver in qualifying, and he definitely was the star of the show under the rain on Saturday. A phenomenal job to take what was his second victory of the season, and that was in the opening race of this weekend. But alongside him, his teammate Elia Weiss, the German, the former championship leader, and now just 4 points behind David Walther, as the German lines up on the second spot on the field on the front row. Weiss has been very competitive this season. He's the only driver who has been able to take 4 victories, never outside of the top 6. But speaking of consistency, David Walther, who starts in 3rd, has never dropped outside of the podium places this season, which is why he is currently leading the championship ahead of this weekend. We're missing Theo Borenstein on the starting grid, and that is because he's already completed the 2 heats that he was supposed to race in. If you're not familiar with the format of Formula 4 Central European Zone, we have so many drivers that we have to divide them into 3 groups, and therefore each group races twice. This is the race between groups A and C. As you can see now, the drivers on the starting grid. We are looking at the beautiful graphics that tell us that Max Karhan and Elia Weiss, as I told you guys before, is the front row for race number 3, with David Walther and Simon Rechenmacher in 3rd and 4th position. 5th place belongs to Alexander Bogunovic, ahead of McLaren Junior Ella Häkkinen, Matilda Parts and Georgi Zazov in 7th and 8th position, with Leo Nilsson and Victor Paulsen rounding out the top 10. Andreas Lobue and Alexia Danielsson on the 6th row of the grid. Then it's Simon Bulbarelle and Yvonne Simeonova on the 7th row. Felipe Reis and Igor Polak right behind him in 15th and 16th respectively, with then Erik Poulsen, Patrik Lipovic, Miroslav Kepak and Piotr Orcholski in the top 20. And then it's Bent Gaspar, Bien Cesari, Noah Nurken, Albert Pijarik, František Nemec and Jorge Luis Bruno rounding out the 26 car field that we will be witnessing in this 3rd race. Of course, then the top drivers from the 3 heats will battle it out in the grand final, the 4th race, starting later this afternoon at 2:55 p.m. local time. Plenty of time then for the drivers to recover from race number 3 to then dive into the grand final, which will tell us so much about the championship, a championship that has started at the Red Bull Ring in April. And it was a phenomenal showing in that particular weekend for David Walther, with 2 victories. Then it was Elia Weiss's time to shine at the Salzburg Ring before having Theo Borenstein almost dominate the 3rd round at the Slovakia Ring. So such an open championship so far this season. As we start the formation lap here in Most, and I think this is the perfect time to talk a bit about this incredible circuit, which is very modern, opened in 1983. I started really hosting great competitions from 2009 onwards, especially with the renovations to the circuit. Situated in the Czech Republic, it is 4.2 kilometers long with 21 corners, and it is one of the prime racetracks in Central Eastern Europe for a plethora of championships that we have here in the Racing Journal Speedfest, which is the event that we are living this weekend. Other than, of course, F4 CEZ, which has been here since the start of the championship in 2023. We've also had plenty of fun with TCR Eastern Europe, with the GT Cup series, and also the Clio Cup, the Twingo Cup, which we'll be seeing later today as well on circuit. And then, of course, the World Superbike and the FIA European Truck Racing Championship being the 2 biggest events on Most's calendar. the FIA ATRC being a stable presence in Most ever since 1993, whereas the World Superbike Championship has started racing here since 2021. A track that is quite liked by the drivers. It has a mix of slow and fast corners. Of course, the opening section of the racetrack is a bit more technical, with slow corners that you only have kind of one line to go through them up until turn number 10, which then brings the drivers to the second half of the racetrack, which features these very long radius corners, as you can see them right about now. Small straights before 90-degree corners that are much wider compared to usual 90-degree corners, which let the drivers really push through the limit in qualifying, and of course help them stay close to their rivals in the race with less dirty air because of the nature of the circuit. And then the final two corners, we see the very last one at the top of the images with a drone that sees every single driver come to a halt on the starting grid for race number 3. It is Max Karhan in first position, just ahead of Elia Weiss in second place. Jenzer Motorsport, of course, will be looking to secure yet another victory, but other teams such as Mafia Racing with their prime ace David Walther getting ready to spoil the Swiss team's party. The question is, will they be able to do so, or will it be another Jenzer Motorsport triumph? As you can see now, every single driver has been placed on the starting grid. We're about to see the green flag being waved by the stewards. There it is, the marshal waving the green flag, and as we will turn the lights off, we will be racing for race number 3 of the FIA Central European Zone Championship in round number 4, and it's a great start once again from Elia Weiss, just like in race 2. He takes the lead immediately from one of his teammates as we race towards turn number 1. It's the German in the lead. Watch out also for Simon Rechenmacher, who goes to the outside into turn number 2. There's also slight contact in the latter part of the group, and that is, I think, Noah Nurken once again involved in a contact just like in race number 1. But out in front, it's Elia Weiss, and once again phenomenal reaction times from second on the grid as he takes the lead in front of Max Karhan, with Rechenmacher being able to overtake David Walther. So this is the perfect scenario for Jenzer Motorsport, as the championship leader now suffers a less than ideal start that puts him down in 4th position. And then behind him, Alexander Bogunovic in 5th. Ella Häkkinen maintains a 6th position. She was so close to finishing on the podium yesterday in race number 2, as she took 5th place in the end. Her best result of the season. Who knows, maybe this could be the time for her to shine. But up front, it's Elia Weiss. And I mean, he has really mastered the art of reaction times. He was phenomenal yesterday against Theo Borenstein, and he was even better today, taking the lead from Max Karhan. Meanwhile, behind, we see one of the Renauer Motorsport entries. I think that is Andreas Leboe, trying to overtake Leo Nielsen for 9th position, though he is forced to stay behind for now. So we ended the opening lap of the race. Elia Weiss, Max Karhan, Simon Rechenmacher, David Walther and Alexander Bogunovic, the top 5. Nothing has changed really, if not for a good start from Viktor Poulsen, who has started phenomenally well. Meanwhile, there's a bit of contact between Viktor Poulsen and Georgi Zazov. Poulsen on the rise once more and overtaking yet another car, making it 3 places gained compared to his starting grid, where he was down in 11th, now already up to 8th, with Jazov having to surrender his position. Meanwhile, behind them, Andras Leboe, Simon Bulbarelle and Felipe Reis trying to take advantage of the fight together with Leo Nilsson. You see him in the silver and blue car number 29. The Swedish driver now into 10th place after having started in 9th, but that phenomenal getaway from Viktor Poulsen, giving the Danish driver 3 places compared to where he was starting. Again, we talked about this before. It is quite trivial to overtake around here, which is why qualifying as well as the race start is one of the most peculiar things to be excellent at on this circuit. Meanwhile, an all-female fight for 6th position is brewing up, as we saw Mathilda Parts being very close to the back of the McLaren Junior's car of Elia Häkkinen, the daughter of the 2-time world champion Formula 1 Mika, representing the Czech Republic. So this is her home race as well, together with Max Karhan, who won on home soil in race number 1 yesterday under a heavy rainfall. Today, though, things might look different, with Elia Weiss still holding first. Meanwhile, to the attack goes, I think that was Piotr Rowkowski on Ivan Semenova. Semenova losing a position. Meanwhile, here is Nölken trying to fight against the drivex of Jorge Luis Bruno. Two drivers that had kind of a difficult time yesterday. Nölken almost having to retire from race number 1 before it even began, spinning out on the reconnaissance lap, whereas Jorge Bruno was unfortunately out in the opening stages of race number 2 after contact, though thankfully they're both racing in race number 3. Up top, Elia Weiss and Max Karhan seem to have a very good rhythm, especially compared to Simon Rechenmacher, who is still in 3rd, but trailing by 1.6 seconds over the race leader. Meanwhile, Miroslav Kepak trying to line up a move. We saw him from the drone cam. Whereas here we are with the latter end of the top 10 for this race. Here we go with the fight that we were witnessing before with Kepak and Simeonova. There's also a driver going slightly wide on the penultimate corner, but thankfully making it to the final one in one piece. But here is another attack, and this time it is František Nemec on the inside of Noah Nölken. The two going side by side towards turn number 1. This is the fight for 23rd position, as Nemec goes through without too many issues, as instead Nölken drops to 24th ahead of Alexei Danielson and Bien Shazari, with the Mafia Racing driver rounding out the 26 car field. As of right now, we've entered into lap number 3 now, as Elia Weiss still leads with a 1 second gap over Max Karhan. He looks to have gained a couple of tenths. It was a 1 minute 33.4 from Weiss in the previous lap, a 1:33.6 for Karhan, a 33.5 for both Rechenmacher and Walther, so very similar pace from the top 4, whereas Alexander Bogunovic has lost quite a bit of time. He is 1.3 seconds behind Walther in 4th. The same goes for Elia Häkkinen. She's 2 seconds adrift from the top 5, although still going on strong in 6th place, just in front of Mathilda Parts. The two separated by just 8 tenths of a second. Here we see Benet Gaspar in the bright green Jenzer Motorsport entry, just behind Miroslav Kepak. Kepak himself is behind Ivan Semenova, the debutante for Mathilda Racing. She's trying to leave her mark in what is essentially her debut this weekend. There's a good exit, however, for Gaspar. Can he make a move towards turn number 1? But Kepak using the slipstream he has from Semenova, and instead it is Gaspar who has to defend from Igor Polak behind, as the Mafia Racing driver number 5 looks to the outside into turn number 1. But there's no way through on Gaspar for the time being, and therefore Kepak has to stay behind for now. The lovely drone cam looking overhead on the circuit towards the first complex of corners. Here we are with Simon Antonio Bulbarelle and Felipe Reis. This is the fight for 12th position, which is inside the points paying positions, because points are awarded to the top 15 since this year, given that a regulation change needed to happen after the big increase of cars wanting to race in this championship. Meanwhile, here is race leader Elia Weiss, and you can see him stretching a bit of a gap over Max Karhan in 2nd position. You can recognize Weiss's livery by the bright yellow nose cone, which is the way Jenzer Motorsport uses to differentiate their drivers. as Weiss now moves to increase his lead by over a second, whereas Max Karhan sees Simon Rechenmacher close in just a bit. David Walther is in 4th position. This is some uncharted territory for the Danish driver, as he has never finished outside of the podium places this year so far. Meanwhile, there's another attack, this time from Igor Polak, as he moves to the inside on Ivan Semyonova, and he makes the move stick into turn 1, and that is an overtake for 19th position. So through goes the Polish driver for Mafia Racing. There's also a chance for Abed Pijarik to take a look at Semyonova's car. Well, meanwhile, we see the drivers coming towards the first section of corners, and I think we've had the confirmation on screen on the live timing page that the safety car has been called out on track. So we will be waiting to understand what has happened. I think it's Jorge Luis Bruno who has yet to cross the start finish line when he should have. Yes, this is the confirmation of the safety car, as I was telling you before. Therefore, the race has been neutralized for now. Here is a safety car waiting to catch the leaders, or waiting for the leaders to catch it. And yeah, I think it is Jorge Bruno. Oh yeah, that's a big shunt for the Argentine, as his DriveX car is badly damaged both to the front and the rear. You can also see the tire marks on the tire walls, probably left by the impact, as the car has lost both wings as well as both left suspensions being damaged. So the safety car is out on track. Elia Weiss therefore sees his advantage brought to 0 basically, which is definitely a shame, as Max Karhan and Simon Rechenmacher will be able to close in on the German. Weiss himself found himself in the same situation yesterday in race number 2, having to deal with a safety car restart, but that was after a red flag, so kind of a different situation as well, though he coped brilliantly with the adversity, as we saw Jorge Luis Bruno walking away from his stranded DriveX car. That is good to see, of course, that he is on his own feet and able to go back to the pit lane. Unfortunately, 2 races and 2 DNFs for the Argentine, which is likely not going to partake in the final race next. Meanwhile, here you can see the first part of the circuit. That one on the top is turn number 10, which is kind of the halfway stage of the lap, where the track transforms from a bunch of straight and slow corners to a fast flowing track with very entertaining bends that bring the drivers towards the start finish line. There you can see the stranded car on the outside of turn number 12 and 13. That is kind of an awkward place to recover the car as well, so this might be not the shortest of safety cars, because of course the car needs to be recovered from the marshals out on track. And as you can see now, the drivers are slowing down behind the safety car, as the red flag has been actually brought out, and that is likely to recover the car and do it in the quickest time possible. So the clock is stopped with 30 minutes and 26 seconds to go, which makes it so that the drivers will come back to the pits and wait for the race to restart. This is exactly what happened yesterday as well. In that case, in race number 2, we had a red flag with around 17 minutes left on the clock. This time it's 13, but the situation is basically the same, and once again it is Elia Weiss in first position. So this is exactly what he knows can happen around here, especially if you crash in the middle sector. It is quite difficult for the marshals to recover the car, especially on the outside of those turns, which is why the safety car has been removed and the red flag has been put in its place. So drivers are now back in the pit lane, waiting for the official confirmation that will tell us when we are getting ready for a restart. You can already see from the other cameras that the marshals are tirelessly working to take the car of Jorge Luis Bruno, who has unfortunately crashed out of the race. I'm expecting this to be quite a short red flag period as well, given how good the marshals have been throughout, not just this weekend of course, but in the history of F4 CEZ. Here are the marshals, as I said before, working to remove the car, and that is unfortunately a bad place to crash out of the race in, because as you can see, the truck now taking up the car has to then move to the other side of the circuit towards the infield section, which is where the paddock is and where the service roads are, which is why the race was red flagged, because of course we need to wait for the truck to cross the entire track, and that would have been impossible with 25 Formula 4 cars going around, which is why now they are safely into the pits and are waiting for further instructions. Elia Weiss is still our leader, Max Karhan in second, Simon Rechenmacher in third, David Walther in fourth position, and I think the Danish driver really needs to change something here, because he hasn't been as quick as maybe one would have hoped, especially for Mafia Racing this weekend. He's still been very competitive, of course. He's finished third in the opening race of this weekend and he's now in fourth, so it's not like he is miles off the pace. But given how quick Jenzer Motorsport has been in these 3 days, and given how Elia Weiss is looking to take a record-breaking 5th win of the season, Walther has to try something new, at least now that he has to wait at least 10 minutes before the race starts. This is something that has previously happened in Most as well. But I mean, Jenzer has always been mighty competitive here, taking the win in all 3 races last year. And that was eventual champion Gino Trappa, together with Javier Herrera, taking the 3 victories. The history was very similar in 2024 as well. Max Karhan taking a win together with Kirill Kutskov. The other one going instead to Miroslav Mires from JMT Racing. So it will be very interesting to see, especially the tactics inside Jenzer Motorsport, the team that has dominated this championship ever since its beginning in 2023. We also had a previous season, 2022, but that was the ACCR Formula 4 trophy with just 4 rounds. The season after 2023 was really the maiden one for F4 CEZ, and Jenzer Motorsport has won every single title since then, winning the team's standings all 3 years, and then of course having 3 different champions in Ethan Ischer, Oscar Wirtz and Gino Trappa between 2023 and 2025. Meanwhile, here is the official confirmation that we are 10 minutes away from the official restart behind the safety car. So as I said, it would have been quite a brief intermission before the official restart, and that is exactly the case, as the car has already been cleared from the point of impact. Unfortunately, Jorge Luis Bruno crashing out of the race, having to bring out the red flag for the marshals to recover his stranded DriveX car. And here is the plethora of fans in the grass towards turn number 1. I mean, we've seen plenty of fans throughout the years come here in Most to watch, especially the Racing Journal Speedfest. I mean, it's one of the biggest events on the calendar and the passion of Czech fans can only be applied either here or in Most, and therefore it's or only in Brno actually, which is why this track always gets high recognition from Czech drivers and fans alike. It's always great to see many fans. We saw them yesterday as well, with how difficult the weather conditions were. It was amazing to see plenty of fans scattered throughout the start-finish straight. There's also a couple of nice covered grandstands that were pretty packed yesterday. Meanwhile today, of course, with the sun out, it is easier for fans to stay outside and closer to the action. Plenty of them choosing the prime overtaking opportunity of the circuit at turn number 1 to sit, relax and watch the action. As now we are having a look with our beautiful drone to the entire field waiting in the pit lane. We briefly saw the McLaren colours brought on track by Elia Häkkinen, one of the many drivers who have found themselves part of a junior academy of Formula 1 teams. That is, of course, something very important in the economy of their careers. It is fundamental for them to receive not just a helping hand in preparing races and seasons, but also a way to grow and be close to their heroes and those drivers who they're trying to emulate. In this case, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, the two drivers in Formula 1 for McLaren Racing, a team that has grown massively, of course, in the past couple of seasons. And Elia Häkkinen, on the other hand, starting her own journey, carrying a heavy surname for sure. Speaking of McLaren, his dad, Mika, won 2 championships with them in Formula 1 in 1998 and 1999. But Ella says this is her passion and her journey. She also wears proudly the Czech colors on her car and on her suit. So this is also her home circuit, and the next one will be as well, given that after this weekend we will take a bit of a break of 4 or 5 weeks before we go to Brno from the 11th to the 13th of September, and that will be the 5th race weekend of the season. And then after that, the Hungaroring will host the season finale from the 23rd to the 25th of October. The Hungaroring was also present on the championship in 2023, but has missed on the calendar ever since, which is great to see them come back to such an important circuit. I mean, the Hungaroring has also been part of the calendar before, but now with the renovation project that has taken place, we have seen plenty of series coming back to Budapest. Meanwhile, there's only 5 minutes before the restart behind the safety car, so the clock will start ticking down already, though we will be behind the safety car for at least 1, if not 2 laps. It was 2 yesterday, so we might be looking for the same here today. Now 4 minutes away from the restart, as Elia Weiss gets ready to reignite the engine of his Jenzer Motorsport car. Now he has to think, how can I defend my position going into turn 1, because of course Max Karhan will be his prime rival for that top spot. The two have shared victories this weekend, Karhan winning race number 1 and Weiss winning race number 2, though of course they hadn't shared the track since the 3rd round in Slovakia, as the two were part of different heats this weekend. This is the only time where they will be racing together before the grand final, which will start later today at 2:55 local time in the afternoon, and that will tell us a great deal about how we will be going to the 5-week break that separates us from the next round in Brno, a circuit that instead has always been on the calendar ever since 2023, and that is the same with Most, the Slovakia ring, and the Red Bull ring. Red Bull Ring actually hosting 2 races last year, thus becoming the track with more F4 CEZ races in the history of the championship. But as I said before, Most is one of the absolute favorites for both teams and drivers. And as you can see, there's plenty of fans also on the terrace, just looming over the pit lane. There's a few McLaren hats as well for Elia Häkkinen. You can also see her car on the bottom right corner in the bright orange and black livery. Now the drivers getting ready to restart. Their engineers just giving them a couple of final tips, as we only have almost a minute before the restart. So the clock will start ticking once more. We will be behind the safety car for a couple of laps before we get ready to race under green flag conditions once more here in Most. Red flag brought out because of an accident involving Jorge Luis Bruno, who is unfortunately out of the running but safely out of the car. So getting ready to see the safety car leave the pit lane. Of course, drivers will have to work very hard with the tire temperatures. It is very, very difficult for them to be able, of course, to keep the temperatures in the tires, especially now that they've been sitting in the pits for at least 15 minutes. It is also quite tough mentally for the drivers, having to reconnect with their inner selves, especially before a restart that is as delicate as this one, with very few minutes left on the clock. I think there will be less than 10 when we go back to green flag racing, which is a little under 5 laps, maybe even 4 of green flag running, as the drivers patiently wait for the lights to turn green at the end of the pit lane. There it is. And therefore we are back racing under safety car conditions, but still the race is once again underway. The 25 remaining cars going out on track. And there is the entire field leaving the pits. Elia Weiss in charge of the restart operations in a couple of minutes time. Max Karhan, on the other hand, waiting for his teammate to perhaps make a mistake or to leave an opening for him to dive up the inside or around the outside if he's feeling brave. And behind them, it's Simon Rechenmacher for Karhan Motorsport. The German has become a race winner this season at the Slovakia ring, taking home the win in race number 2. He was third yesterday in the second race on Saturday, and he will definitely be waiting for the top 2 to scrap in order to get back into the fight for the lead and the win in this race. But he has to be very careful not to let David Walther through. The championship leader, on the other hand, will need to make his way through at least a couple of cars if he wants to get a shot of attacking Elia Weiss, which is definitely not easy, especially now that the 2 Jenzer teammates are in front. Can almost work together at one point. That is, of course, one of the possibilities, though they are rivals in the championship fight, which is why I suspect that the 2 will be left out there on their own to fight against one another for the race win here in Most I mean, Jenzer has such a huge advantage in the team standings anyways, that both Karhan and Weiss could be left fighting for this win. Again, this would be Elia Weiss's 5th triumph of the season, whereas Karhan is looking for his 3rd. Both of them on an active race win streak. Weiss had won 2 consecutive races already. He did so at the Salzburg Ring, taking the win in races 1 and 2. As we go through the final corner for the first time after the red flag, we will have yet another lap behind the safety car, after which I think we will be getting ready to restart. Here we see the back end of the field. That was Erik Poulsen in the number 2 car ahead of Miroslav Kepak. Poulsen just outside of the points in 16th place. Again, one of the Swedish flag bearers this season. He was very competitive at the Slovakia Ring, taking 5th place on 2 occasions. Those were his best results of the season. He's also the best Swedish driver in the championship, sitting in 15th place with 40 points. Mio Ollert is also a stable presence in the top 10 and top 15, though of course he's not racing in this heat, as he partook in both races yesterday, finishing 11th and 10th in races 1 and 2 respectively. And then of course we also have Alexia Danielsson, struggling a bit more today, down in 22nd position, but yesterday she was fire as she finished in 6th, race number 2, and that was the absolute best results for her in this 2026 season. We go now through the first sector of the circuit. We are into turn 10, the long right-hander. Someone would call it a hairpin almost, as then the drivers are able to unleash the power of their cars towards turns 11, 12, and then 13, which is where the safety car is now, and which is where Jorge Bruno lost the car earlier today, thus bringing out the red flag. But I'm sure that the other drivers will be ready to go back to green flag racing at the end of this lap. And yes, the safety car has turned its lights off, which is the prime signal for us that the race is about to get underway under green flag conditions once more. So I hope you're still with us, because we have a little under 8 minutes once green flag racing resumes to settle who will win race number 3 this weekend in Most. This could be a pivotal moment in the championship, as Elia Weiss leads the field ahead of Max Karhan, Simon Rechenmacher and David Walther. And here we go, back on the green flag racing, and that was a huge start from Elia Weiss. Look at the gap that the German has created already over Max Karhan, who is now under pressure from both Rechenmacher and David Walther, but Walther now having to defend from Alexander Bogunovic, who looks to the outside into turn 1, unable to take the place from Walther. However, he had to defend the position. Meanwhile, there's Leo Nielsen attacked by Andreas Lobue towards the opening corner, but Nielsen was able to keep 10th place from the Renauer Motorsport driver. Meanwhile, I think that was one of the Matilda racing cars, and that was Yvonne Semenova skipping the opening chicane, having to avoid the barriers. But smooth sailing for Elia Weiss so far. He had a great restart, taking Max Karhan by surprise and building a bit of a gap over the Czech teammate, though now Karhan looks to have once again found his rhythm and is trying to hunt down Elia Weiss for that elusive victory that Karhan was tasting earlier today when he knew he was starting on pole. But then of course Weiss taking first place away from him right after the lights went out. Meanwhile, fights going on up and down the field. That is Bennett Gaspar fighting against Miroslav Kepak and Ivan Semenova as well. As you can see now, Igor Polak also in the mix, right behind Gaspar with the Hungarian in the bright green car, trying to figure out a way to overtake Kepak. The three of them are almost certainly going to fight towards turn number 1, with Gaspar not having the best straight line speed as we saw before, which enables car number 5 to go around the outside, but Polak doesn't make the move stick. There was no room for him on the braking. It was a good defensive move from Gaspar on the other hand, which gives the Hungarian the chance to stay in what currently is 18th position, still outside of the points paying positions, but who knows. There's still 5.5 minutes left on the clock. You can see Gaspar starting to put Kepak under pressure to maybe line up a move towards the end of this race, and then maybe hope for something to change in order for him to finish into the points paying position. But that is a car off, and I think that might be Igor Polak in car number 5 from Maffi, in the exact same point where Jorge Bruno crashed out before, and the safety car has immediately been called out on track. And I think this might be the end of this race, as the safety car is once again called back on track, this time for Igor Polak, who is unable to restart his car, beached into the gravel after contact with the barriers as well. And this could potentially be the end of this race with just 4 minutes left on the clock. We only have around 2 laps before the end under safety car conditions, and yeah, I mean, I don't think this race is restarting. Meanwhile, we have news of a 10-second penalty for car number 12, and that is Bien Cesari, for an incorrect starting position. There is also a 10-second time penalty to be added after the race for car number 3, and that is Simon Rechenmacher in 3rd position for jump start. So that changes the podium completely, as the German will likely drop not just outside of the podium, but of the points paying position entirely, as Rechenmacher is hit with a 10-second penalty for jumping the start, which will promote David Walther in 3rd position. So somehow he is able to continue his podium streak should things stay this way. Such a shame for Rechenmacher. We didn't see, unfortunately, a jump start, but the Swedes have all the tools they need in order to see that happen. And therefore, Rechenmacher hit with a 10-second penalty, which will bring the German outside of the podium. He was also the best rookie of this race, which instead will likely go to Elia Häkkinen, as the red flag is shown for the 2nd time today for the exact same reasons as for the first one, given that the crash is in the exact same place. And we also have confirmation that the session will not be resumed. So just like in race number 2, it's a carbon copy win for Elia Weiss, having to navigate a first red flag, having the race finish under red flag, but he is now going back to the pits, and as you can see now, confirmation popping up on the screen as well, and Elia Weiss is therefore able to celebrate his 2nd win of this weekend, but most importantly, win number 5 of his season, as well as taking the championship lead once more, having done so at the Salzburg ring, having lost it at the Slovakia ring, now retaking it from David Walter's hands here in Most. So it's utter elation for Jenzer Motorsport as Elia Weiss takes his 5th win of the year, with Max Karhan finishing in second. And then Simon Rechenmacher is third, but he was hit with a 10-second penalty for jumping the start, which is why he will drop outside of the podium places, promoting David Walther in third position. Now cars entering Parc Fermé and getting ready to be greeted by their teams. Elia Weiss, kind of in an anticlimactic way, just like yesterday. He's starting to get used to it probably, but I'm sure he won't mind, as this is yet another win for the German, who is looking more and more comfortable as the season goes on. Started off well at the Red Bull Ring with a win in the opening race he partook in, but then taking 2 wins later on. This is the replay of the accident that put an abrupt end to the race. Unfortunately, we couldn't really tell what happened with car number 5 driven by Igor Polak. But this is unfortunately the way that this race ended. So it's Elia Weiss taking the win just ahead of Max Karhan, and then on the road Simon Rechenmacher, but because of the 10-second penalty it will be David Walther stepping onto the podium. And those are all the cars in Parc Fermé, which is unfortunately a moment where the race has finished in anticlimactic conditions, but it is Elia Weiss taking the win ahead of Max Karhan and David Walther. And that is everything from us for race number 3. The next one will be the grand final for this weekend, starting at 2:55 p.m. local time later today. These are the results, with Weiss, Karhan, and then Rechenmacher on the road, but unfortunately then a 10-second penalty drops him outside of the podium, promoting David Walther into third position. The points then rounded out by Erik Poulsen and Patrik Lipovic, taking home points, as the Hungarian was able to finish in 15th position, and then the rest of the field. But that is everything from us. See you guys later today at 2:55 p.m. for race number 4 here in Most, for round number 4 of the Formula 4 Central European Zone Championship.
Fantastic.